The Boeing 737 shuddered through another patch of turbulence at 30,000 feet, and most passengers gripped their armrests a little tighter. In seat 13F, Captain Vera, Falcon, Morrow simply adjusted her worn leather jacket and continued reading her paperback thriller, unmoved by the aircraft's protests against the storm system they were pushing through. To anyone watching, she looked like just another middle-aged woman heading home from a business trip, her graying auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, reading glasses perched on her nose. But 300 miles ahead, something was very wrong. Crystal Palace, this is Raptor 17. We have unknown contacts bearing 090, Angels 28, speed 700 knots and climbing. Major Jake Viper Harrison's voice crackled through the encrypted channel from his F-22 Raptor, somewhere over the Nevada desert. His wingman, Captain Lisa Phoenix Rodriguez, confirmed the reading on her own displays. The contacts had appeared suddenly on their radar screens during what should have been a routine training exercise. 6 aircraft in tight formation, moving too fast to be commercial, too coordinated to be civilian, and completely invisible to ground control's primary radar. The signature was unlike anything in their identification manuals. Raptor 17, Crystal Palace, we show nothing on scope. Confirm your readings. Harrison's jaw tightened inside his helmet. He'd been flying military aircraft for 12 years, and his radar had never lied to him before. Crystal Palace, contacts are real and closing on civilian air corridor, requesting permission to investigate. Negative Raptor 17, maintain current heading, we're scrambling additional assets. But Harrison was already banking left, Phoenix following his lead. Whatever those contacts were, they were on an intercept course with commercial traffic, and his radar showed at least 3 passenger jets in the area. Meanwhile, aboard United Flight 1247, the captain's voice came over the intercom with that practiced calm that airline pilots perfect over thousands of hours. Folks, we're experiencing some weather ahead, so we're going to be making a slight course correction. Flight attendants, please take your seats. Vera glanced out her window at the clear sky and frowned. There wasn't a cloud for 50 miles. She'd flown enough combat missions over Iraq and Afghanistan to recognize evasive maneuvers when she felt them. The subtle bank to the right, the slight increase in engine power, the way the flight attendants moved with practiced urgency. This wasn't weather. Her hand instinctively moved to where her flight suit pocket would normally be, searching for the tactical radio that wasn't there. For the first time in 3 years of civilian life, Captain Vera Morrow felt completely helpless. She was trapped in an aluminum tube with no weapons, no communications, and no way to help with whatever was developing in the airspace around them. Below them, the desert stretched endlessly, holding its secrets close. The commercial airliner continued its altered course, its passengers unaware that they had just become pawns in something much larger than turbulence avoidance. And in seat 13F, a decorated combat veteran who had earned her call sign, Falcon, for her ability to strike from impossible angles, was about to discover that retirement from the Air Force didn't mean retirement from war. The aircraft's radio crackled with urgent transmissions that only the cockpit could hear, but Vera's trained ear caught the subtle changes in engine pitch that told her they were no longer following their filed flight plan. She closed her book and prepared for whatever was coming next, her muscle memory already calculating angles of attack and defensive maneuvers that would be impossible in a passenger jet. Something was hunting them at 30,000 feet, and she was sitting helpless in coach. Vera unbuckled her seatbelt and moved toward the front of the cabin, her movements casual but purposeful. The flight attendant intercepted her with a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Ma'am, the captain has asked everyone to remain seated." "I need to speak with your captain," Vera said quietly. "Tell him Captain Morrow needs to talk." The flight attendant's expression shifted subtly. In the airline industry, rank still mattered, and something in Vera's voice carried the unmistakable authority of command. I'll see what I can do." While the flight attendant disappeared behind the cockpit door, Vera studied the other passengers. Most were absorbed in their phones or tablets, oblivious to the drama playing out around them. A businessman in 12A was gripping his whiskey a little too tightly. A young mother in 15C kept glancing nervously out the window. They could sense something was wrong, even if they couldn't identify what. The cockpit door opened, and Captain Sarah Mitchell emerged. She was younger than Vera had expected, maybe 40, with the weathered confidence that came from thousands of hours in the pilot's seat. Her eyes found Vera immediately. "Captain Morrow, I'm Sarah Mitchell. You said you needed to speak with me." "Air Force retired," Vera said simply. "And whatever's happening up there, this isn't about weather." Mitchell's facade cracked slightly. "How did you?" 12 years flying combat missions. I know evasive maneuvers when I feel them." Vera kept her voice low, conscious of the passengers around them. "What's the situation?" Mitchell glanced around the cabin, then made a decision. "Cockpit now." They moved quickly through first class, Mitchell using her key card to open the secure door. Inside, First Officer David Park was hunched over the radio console, his face tense with concentration. "Dave, this is Captain Morrow, Air Force retired. Fill her in." Park looked up, relief evident in his expression. "Thank God, someone who might actually understand what's happening." He handed her a spare headset. "Listen to this." The radio chatter was unlike anything Vera had heard in civilian aviation. Multiple military call signs, encrypted channels bleeding through, references to unknown contacts and intercept vectors. Her blood ran cold as she recognized the tactical language she'd hoped never to hear again. "How long has this been going on?" she asked. "Started about 10 minutes ago," Mitchell replied. "Air traffic control ordered us off our flight path. No explanation, just immediate deviation for military operations." Vera absorbed this information, her mind automatically shifting into combat mode. "Show me our current position and heading." Park pulled up the navigation display. They were over southeastern Nevada, roughly 100 miles from Nellis Air Force Base. The area was riddled with restricted airspace and testing ranges. "Jesus," Vera whispered, "you're flying through the most heavily defended airspace in North America." The radio crackled again. "All civilian traffic, this is Crystal Palace. Immediately squawk 7700 and proceed to nearest suitable airport. This airspace is now restricted." Emergency frequency. Vera felt her training kick in, muscle memory overriding 3 years of civilian routine. "Mitchell, how much fuel do you have?" "Enough to reach Vegas or turn back to Denver." "Don't do either." Vera's voice carried the authority of her former rank. "Maintain current heading and altitude. If they wanted to shoot us down, they already would have." "Are you insane?" Park turned from his controls. "They just ordered us out of the area. And if we comply, we'll never know what we stumbled into." Vera studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. Someone's operating military aircraft in civilian airspace without proper clearance. Either it's our military running an unscheduled exercise, or... She didn't finish the sentence, but both pilots understood. The alternative was that hostile aircraft were operating over American soil, and their airliner had accidentally positioned itself in the middle of an engagement zone. Outside, the sky looked deceptively peaceful, but Vera knew that modern air combat happened at distances where opposing aircraft were invisible to the naked eye. Somewhere out there, American pilots were facing an unknown threat, and her instincts told her that running would only make things worse. The radio exploded with urgent transmissions. "Raptor 17, Fox 3, Fox 3, the unmistakable call of an air-to-air missile launch. Vera grabbed the radio microphone. "Crystal Palace, this is Falcon. requesting immediate tactical frequency and situation report. There was a long pause. Then, "Say again, caller, did you say Falcon?" "Affirmative. Captain Vera Morrow, call sign Falcon, requesting immediate assistance." Another pause, longer this time. When the controller's voice returned, it carried a different tone entirely. "Falcon. Jesus Christ. Falcon, this is Colonel Matthews. What the hell are you doing in civilian airspace?" Vera closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her past settling back onto her shoulders. 3 years ago, she'd been one of the Air Force's most decorated fighter pilots. Today, she was a passenger in coach. But some call signs never died, and Falcon was legendary in certain circles. "Long story, Colonel. Right now I'm aboard United 1247 and we're in your airspace. What's the threat situation?" "Falcon, we have 6 unknown aircraft, possibly hostile, operating in restricted space. They're unlike anything we've seen before. No transponder signals, no response to radio calls, and they're moving at impossible speeds." Vera felt her pulse quicken. "Impossible how?" "Mach 2.5 at sea level, turning radius that defies physics. Our Raptors can't match their performance." She processed this information, her tactical mind automatically cataloging possibilities. Advanced prototype aircraft, foreign military technology, or something else entirely. None of the options were good. "Colonel, I need a tactical frequency and real-time data link, and I need you to trust me." "Falcon, you're in a civilian aircraft. There's nothing you can do from there." "Maybe, maybe not. But I'm the only combat pilot you have in the immediate area, and I know these skis better than anyone." Through the cockpit windows, she could see contrails forming in the distance, the telltale signs of high-performance aircraft maneuvering at combat speeds. The war had found her, even in retirement. Colonel Matthews' voice came back over the radio, heavy with resignation and hope in equal measure. "Falcon, you're cleared on tactical frequency, and God help us all." "Raptor 17, this is Falcon." Vera's voice cut through the tactical chatter with practiced authority. "What's your current position and status?" Major Harrison's voice crackled back, tight with concentration. "Falcon, whoever you are, this frequency is restricted to." "Viper, this is Colonel Matthews. Falcon is cleared on this frequency. She's one of ours." A pause. "Roger, Crystal Palace. Falcon, this is Raptor 17. We're Angels 28, bearing 270 from Nellies. We have 6 bogies in loose formation, speed and maneuverability beyond anything in our threat library." Vera closed her eyes, visualizing the tactical situation. "Viper, are they maintaining formation or individual maneuvering?" "Formation mostly. But Falcon, these things move like nothing I've ever seen. They can pull turns that should tear the wings off any aircraft." "Phoenix here," Captain Rodriguez's voice joined the conversation. "Falcon, we launched 2 AMRAAMs at the lead aircraft. Both missiles missed. The bogey didn't just evade, it seemed to anticipate the launch by several seconds." Vera felt a chill that had nothing to do with the aircraft's air conditioning. Advanced warning systems were one thing, but true predictive capability suggested either unprecedented electronic warfare technology or something else entirely. "Phoenix, describe the aircraft configuration. What do they look like?" "That's the thing, Falcon, they're not quite right. They look like conventional fighter aircraft at first glance, but the proportions are off. Longer than they should be, wings that seem to shift configuration mid-flight." Captain Mitchell grabbed Vera's arm. "What the hell are you getting us into?" Vera looked at her steadily. "Something we're already in. The question is whether we're going to be victims or participants." The tactical frequency exploded with activity. "Crystal Palace, Raptor 17. Bogies have changed course. They're heading straight for civilian traffic." Vera grabbed the microphone. "All Raptor flights, this is Falcon. Do not engage over civilian traffic. Break off and establish a defensive perimeter. Falcon, this is Viper. Who the hell are you to give tactical orders? Colonel Matthews' voice cut through the confusion. All aircraft, Falcon is cleared to coordinate defensive operations. Her tactical clearance is Alpha 1. The frequency went silent. Alpha 1 was the highest level of tactical authority, reserved for senior combat commanders. Vera hadn't used that clearance in 3 years, but apparently it was still active. Viper Phoenix, this is Falcon. I need you to think like prey, not predators. These aircraft are exhibiting behavior patterns I've seen before. Where? Harrison's voice was skeptical. Afghanistan, 2019. We encountered aircraft that moved in similar patterns. Turned out they weren't piloted by humans. Another silence on the tactical frequency. Finally, Phoenix spoke. Falcon, are you saying these are drones? I'm saying that human pilots have physiological limitations. G-force tolerance, reaction time, spatial orientation. What you're describing suggests those limitations don't apply. Vera turned to Mitchell. I need you to change course. Bearing 045, climb to flight level 350. That'll take us directly toward the engagement area. Trust me. Mitchell hesitated, then began inputting the course change. Dave, take us up to 35,000 and prep the cabin for possible evasive maneuvers. As the airliner began its climb, Vera studied the tactical display Park had pulled up on his secondary screen. The unknown aircraft were moving in a pattern she'd seen before, but not in any conventional military context. Viper, I need you to try something. Instead of attempting intercept, I want you to mirror their movements. Don't pursue, parallel. Falcon, that's not standard intercept protocol. Nothing about this situation is standard, trust me. She watched the display as Harrison's F-22 adjusted its course, moving into a parallel heading with the lead unknown aircraft. For a moment, both aircraft maintained the same course and speed. Then something extraordinary happened. The unknown aircraft began to slow, matching the Raptor's speed exactly. The formation spread slightly, as if acknowledging the presence of the American fighter. Holy shit, Phoenix breathed over the radio. Falcon, they're responding to us, not as threats but as equals. Vera felt a piece of the puzzle click into place. Viper, try a standard formation join-up signal. Wings level, shallow S-stern. You want me to attempt communication with unidentified aircraft in American airspace. I want you to find out if they're here to fight or to make contact. The next 60 seconds would determine whether they were facing an invasion or something else entirely. And 35,000 feet above the Nevada desert, a retired combat pilot in a commercial airliner was about to discover that some wars were fought not with weapons, but with understanding. Harrison executed the formation signal, his F-22 performing the classic maneuver that had been used by military pilots for decades to indicate peaceful intent. The response was immediate and unmistakable. The lead unknown aircraft performed the exact same maneuver, followed by its 5 companions. Perfect synchronization, textbook execution. Crystal Palace, this is Raptor 17. Harrison's voice carried a mixture of amazement and uncertainty. The bogies just returned our formation signal. They're trying to communicate. Vera felt her understanding of the situation shift fundamentally. All stations, this is Falcon. I believe we're dealing with a first contact scenario. The tactical frequency erupted in confused chatter until Colonel Matthews restored order. All stations, maintain radio discipline. Falcon, explain your assessment. The aircraft performance you've described is beyond current human technology. The formation patterns suggest intelligence, but not hostile intent. And now they're responding to standard military communication protocols. Vera paused, knowing how her next words would sound. Colonel, I believe these aircraft are not from Earth. Captain Mitchell stared at her. Are you seriously suggesting we're dealing with aliens? Before Vera could respond, the aircraft's passenger address system crackled to life, but instead of Captain Mitchell's voice, a different sound emerged. It was musical, almost like whale song, but with an underlying mathematical precision that suggested language. The sound lasted for 30 seconds, then stopped. Silence filled the cockpit. Falcon Phoenix's voice was barely a whisper. Did you hear that? Affirmative. All aircraft report your status. One by one, the F-22 pilots reported the same thing. The strange musical transmission had been heard on all frequencies simultaneously, including the aircraft's internal communication systems. Crystal Palace, this is Falcon. I'm requesting immediate conference with Base Commander and any xenolinguistics specialists you have on call. Falcon, this is General Morrison, a new voice carrying the authority of senior command. I'm Base Commander at Nellie's. What's your tactical assessment? Vera took a deep breath. Sir, I believe we're being contacted by representatives of a non-human intelligence. They've demonstrated technological superiority but non-hostile intent. They're using our own communication protocols to establish peaceful contact. Captain Morrow, the general's voice carried decades of command experience. Are you absolutely certain about this assessment? Sir, in 12 years of combat operations, I've learned to trust my instincts. These aircraft aren't trying to evade or attack. They're trying to talk. Through the cockpit windows, Vera could see contrails converging on their position. The unknown aircraft were approaching, but their formation remained non-threatening. General Morrison, this is Viper. The bogies are moving to intercept civilian traffic, but their approach vector suggests rendezvous, not attack. Vera grabbed the microphone. All stations, I'm going to try something. If I'm wrong, we'll know quickly. She switched to the universal emergency frequency and began speaking clearly. Unknown aircraft, this is Captain Vera Morrow, United States Air Force. We acknowledge your attempt to communicate. We wish to establish peaceful dialogue. The response came immediately. The same musical language, but this time it seemed to carry emotional undertones. Hope, perhaps, or relief. Captain Mitchell was shaking her head. This is insane. We're having a conversation with UFOs. Not UFOs anymore, Vera replied quietly. IFOs, identified flying objects. The question is what they want. Her answer came sooner than expected. The lead aircraft moved into a position directly ahead of their airliner, close enough that its configuration was clearly visible through the cockpit windows. It was beautiful in a way that defied conventional aerospace engineering. Organic curves that seemed to flow rather than being constructed, surfaces that seemed to shimmer with their own light. It was clearly artificial, but it moved through the air with the grace of a living creature. And painted on its fuselage in perfect English letters was a single word: welcome. Jesus Christ, Dave Park whispered, they speak English. But Vera was studying the aircraft more closely, and she noticed something else. Below the English word, in smaller script, was what appeared to be mathematical equations, formulas she didn't recognize but which seemed to pulse with meaning. General Morrison, are you getting visual confirmation of this? Affirmative, Falcon. We have satellite imagery. The lead aircraft appears to be displaying written communication. Vera made a decision that would change everything. General, I'm going to request that our aircraft be allowed to accompany these visitors to a controlled landing site. They've chosen to make first contact with a civilian airliner. There might be significance to that choice. Absolutely not. We're not risking civilian passengers. Sir, with respect, we're already at risk, but we're also potentially part of the most important moment in human history. These beings chose to reveal themselves now, in this way. Maybe they're trying to tell us something about how they want this contact to proceed. The musical language returned. this time with what sounded unmistakably like questioning inflection, as if the visitors were asking for a response. Captain Mitchell looked at her instruments, then at Vieira. "Captain Morrow, as pilot in command of this aircraft, I need to know, are you asking me to make first contact with an alien intelligence?" Vieira looked out at the impossible aircraft packing their airliner, at the perfect formation of ships that had traveled unknowable distances to reach this moment. "I'm asking you to help me make sure that, when humanity looks back on this day, we can say we chose hope over fear." The airliner flew onward through the Nevada sky, escorted by visitors from the stars, while in the cargo hold below, 200 passengers remained unaware that the course of human history was being rewritten at 35,000 feet. "Crystal Palace, this is Falcon. I'm recommending we establish a controlled approach to Nellies. These visitors have demonstrated peaceful intent, and they seem to be requesting formal contact." General Morrison's voice carried the weight of impossible decisions. "Falcon, are you prepared to take responsibility for this recommendation?" Vieira looked at the aircraft formation around them, at the mathematical equations scrolling across the visitor's hull like a message of friendship written in the universal language of science. "Yes, sir, I am." "Then God help us all. You're cleared to guide them in." What followed was unlike any approach control sequence in aviation history. The visitor aircraft responded perfectly to standard air traffic control directions, adjusting their formation and speed with precision that made human pilots look clumsy by comparison. But more remarkably, they seemed to understand not just the mechanics of flight, but the protocols of peaceful interaction. As the formation descended toward Nelly's Air Force Base, Vera realized that her retirement from military service was officially over. She was no longer just a passenger in seat 13, as she was humanity's first ambassador to the stars. "Raptor flights, this is Falcon. Maintain escort formation, but remember, we're not guards anymore. We're honor guard." The difference was subtle but important. They weren't protecting Earth from invaders, they were welcoming guests. As the Nevada landscape spread below them, dotted with military installations and testing ranges, Vieira couldn't help but think about the irony. Humanity had spent decades preparing for the possibility of hostile alien contact, building weapons and defenses against invasion from the stars. But the visitors had chosen to reveal themselves to a commercial airliner full of ordinary people, escorted by military aircraft whose pilots were learning that sometimes the greatest act of courage was laying down your weapons and extending your hand in friendship. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking." Captain Mitchell's voice was steady despite the extraordinary circumstances. "We're beginning our descent into Las Vegas. Please remain seated and prepare for landing." She didn't mention that they were making history, or that the aircraft formation around them represented the most significant moment in human development since the invention of language. Some truths were too large for announcements. But in seat 13F, Captain Vera, Falcon Morrow, understood that her call sign had taken on new meaning. Falcons were hunters, predators that struck from above with lethal precision. But they were also creatures of the sky, at home in the vast spaces between Earth and stars. Today, she had learned that the sky was far more crowded than anyone had imagined, and humanity was no longer alone. The musical language filled the radio frequencies one more time, but now Vera could hear something different in its tones. Not the cautious probing of first contact, but the warm harmonies of greeting between old friends who had finally found each other after a long separation. As the formation approached Nelly's Air Force Base, she realized that this was not first contact. This was homecoming. The landing sequence unfolded with surreal precision. The visitor aircraft touched down on the main runway at Nelly's with movements that seemed to defy physics, coming to a complete stop in impossibly short distances without any visible braking systems. The commercial airliner landed normally, surrounded by an escort of F-22 Raptors whose pilots were still processing what they had witnessed. As United Flight 1247 taxied toward a secure area of the base, Vera could see through the cockpit windows that Nellie's had been transformed. Military vehicles surrounded the tarmac, but so did scientific equipment, communication arrays, and what appeared to be a hastily constructed diplomatic facility. "Falcon, this is General Morrison. I need you in the command center immediately upon deplaning. We're setting up first contact protocols, and frankly, you're the closest thing we have to an expert on this situation." Vera almost laughed. "Sir, I'm not sure anyone qualifies as an expert in alien diplomacy." "Maybe not, but you're the one who kept us from starting an interstellar war, so you'll have to do." The aircraft came to a complete stop, and Captain Mitchell shut down the engines. Through the windows, they could see the visitor aircraft arranged in a perfect semicircle around them, their surfaces still shimmering with that otherworldly light. "Captain Morrow," Mitchell said quietly, "I don't know what happens next, but I want you to know, when they write the history books about this day, I'm glad your name will be in them." Vera stood and straightened her civilian jacket, wishing she had her uniform. "Captain Mitchell, when they write those books, make sure they mention that the most important decision was made by a commercial airline pilot who chose trust over fear." The passenger cabin was eerily quiet as Vera made her way toward the front of the aircraft. Most passengers were staring out the windows at the impossible scene on the tarmac, their faces showing the universal human expression of minds trying to process something beyond their experience. The little girl in seat 15C looked up at her as she passed. "Ma'am, are those really spaceships?" Vera knelt down to the child's level. "Yes, sweetheart, I think they are." "Are they here to hurt us?" "No," Vera said with absolute certainty. "I think they're here to help us learn that the universe is a much more wonderful place than we ever imagined." As she stepped off the aircraft and onto the tarmac at Nellie's Air Force Base, Captain Vera Falcon Morrow felt the Nevada sun on her face and looked up at a sky that had suddenly become infinite with possibility. Behind her, the passengers of Flight 1247 were deplaning into a world forever changed. Ahead of her, representatives of an alien intelligence waited to make formal contact with humanity. And somewhere between the mundane reality of airport tarmac and the impossible beauty of interstellar visitors, Vera Morrow understood that her greatest mission was just beginning. The call sign Falcon had served her well in combat, striking swift and true against enemies of freedom. But today, she would need to be something more than a predator. She would need to be a bridge between worlds, a translator between species, a guardian of humanity's hopes rather than its fears. The visitors waited patiently in their impossible aircraft, their musical language silent now, as if they understood that the next words spoken would determine the course of two civilizations. Captain Vera Falcon Morrow walked across the tarmac toward humanity's future, carrying with her the hopes of everyone who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered if someone was looking back. The sky had always been her domain. Today, she learned that it was vast enough for everyone.